You think presidents run the world? No. Presidents get elected. These people don't. There are families that have been stacking capital, connections, and influence for generations. They don't need elections. They don't need PR. They don't need your approval. Today, 12 money dynasties that actually move money, politics, and history. No filler, no poetry, just facts. If financial dynasties had a final boss, it's the Rothschilds. Meyer Amschel Rothschild started in the Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt in the 1740s. He changed coins, traded antiques. Nobody thought this was the beginning of the greatest banking empire in history. His plan was simple and brilliant. 5 sons, 5 cities. Amschel stayed in Frankfurt. Solomon went to Vienna, Nathan to London, Karl to Naples, Jacob to Paris. The family operated as a unified network in an era when information travelled by horse. Nathan Rothschild knew about Wellington's victory at Waterloo before the British government did. He played the markets and made a fortune in a single day. They financed the Napoleonic Wars. Both sides. They gave credit to the British Crown. They helped purchase the Suez Canal for Britain. Today, their public profile is deliberately low-key. But Rothschild & Co. still exists. They simply learned not to show off. And that, in itself, is power. John D. Rockefeller started as an accountant. Boring? Not exactly. In 1870, he founded Standard Oil. By 1882, his company controlled 90% of the US oil industry. That's not a monopoly. That's absolute power over the energy of an entire country. When the government broke Standard Oil apart in 1911, antitrust law, serious business, the share price of every spin-off went up. Rockefeller got even richer after being punished. At his peak, his wealth was roughly 1.5% of US GDP. In today's terms, about $400 billion. Elon Musk nervously lights a cigarette. The money went into banks, universities, medicine. Rockefeller funded the University of Chicago, created the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research. The family still shapes global policy through foundations and board seats to this day. John Pierpont Morgan wasn't just a banker, he was a system. In 1907, the American economy was on the edge of collapse, stock market panic, banks failing one after another. The government didn't know what to do. So J.P. Morgan gathered the country's top bankers at his New York home, locked them in his library, and didn't let them out until they agreed on a rescue plan. A private citizen saved the economy of an entire country. He financed railroads, created U.S. Steel, the world's first billion-dollar company by a market cap, and consolidated General Electric. After his death, Congress created the Federal Reserve. Precisely because one man should never have that much power over a nation's economy. That's the best compliment you can receive. DuPont started with gunpowder. Literally. Eleuthère Irénée Dupont came from France in 1800 and built a powder mill on the banks of the Brandywine River in Delaware. The American military became his main client. When there's war, you always need gunpowder. Then they diversified. Dyes, explosives, then chemicals. Nylon, Teflon, Kevlar, all DuPont. You're using their products today without even knowing it. The family basically owned Delaware. Not metaphorically, literally. They built roads, schools, funded politicians. One family, one state. Not bad for immigrant descendants. John Jacob Astor arrived in America from Germany with 7 flutes and $200. That's not a metaphor. He literally traded musical instruments. Then he switched to furs. The fur trade in the late 18th century was like oil in the 20th. He created the American Fur Company and monopolized the market. Then he did what all smart rich people do. He put everything into real estate. New York, Manhattan, land that was worth pennies in the early 1800s and is now worth trillions. He died in 1848 as the richest man in America. His descendants ruled New York society for another 100 years. His great-granddaughter Caroline Astor literally compiled a list of the 400 best families of New York, those worthy of being called elite. Power through a list. Elegant. Henry Ford didn't invent the car. He invented how to build it. The assembly line in 1913 cut Model T production time from 12 hours to 93 minutes. He made the car affordable for the middle class and paid his workers $5 a day when the average wage was $2. The logic was simple. If my workers earn well, they buy my cars. Ford Motor Company is still in family hands. It's one of the largest family-owned companies in the world. William Clay Ford Jr., Henry's great-grandson, was CEO. The money stayed in the family across 5 generations. Joseph Kennedy was one of the most cynical architects of family power in history. He made his fortune on the stock market in the 1920s, allegedly bootlegging alcohol during Prohibition. Officially unproven, but biographers strongly hinted it, then movies and real estate. Then the SEC, when Roosevelt made him head of the exchange regulator. Fox in the henhouse. But Joseph Kennedy's real project was his children. He literally built a political dynasty like a business. John became president. Robert became attorney general and senator. Ted became one of the most influential senators in U.S. history. 3 generations of Kennedys in major politics. Downside: the Kennedy curse, a series of tragic deaths in the family that sounds like a Greek tragedy plot. The Medicis, 15th century, Florence, and a lesson in how money turns into culture. They started as wool merchants, then banking. The Medici Bank at one point was the largest in Europe, with branches from London to Constantinople. But their real power was in how they used money. Cosimo Medici funded Brunelleschi. Lorenzo the Magnificent paid the young Michelangelo and took him into the family. They funded scholars, philosophers, artists. The Renaissance wasn't an accident. It was a Medici project. Money plus patronage, cultural dominance for centuries. From the family came 2 popes and 2 queens of France. Bankers became monarchs. Through money to the throne. If the Medicis used culture, the Habsburgs used marriages. Their motto literally, let others wage war. You, happy Austria, marry. They built empires through wedding contracts, not through wars. At their peak, the Habsburg Empire controlled Austria, Spain, the Netherlands, parts of Italy and Germany, and colonies in the Americas. One family clan, a quarter of the world's GDP at the time. The problem was they held too tightly to their own. Close kin marriages led to genetic disorders. Charles II of Spain was so ill, he couldn't chew properly and died childless at 38. The empire collapsed from within. Lesson: diversify, even in genetics. The Windsors are top-tier branding. During World War I, the British royal family carried the German surname Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. German origins during a war with Germany, that's to put it mildly, bad PR. In 1917, they simply renamed themselves Windsor after the castle. A rebrand in one day. No marketing consultants. As for the money, the Crown Estate. 16 billion in property. The Duchy of Lancaster, the Duchy of Cornwall, multi-billion portfolios. But technically, they don't own it. It's all held in trust for the nation, while they live like billionaires. Today, the monarchy is a tourism product, a symbol of stability, and a soft power money machine. Is it worth its cost? The British debate. Tourism revenue says yes. This is the only dynasty on the list built from scratch in the 20th century. Sam Walton opened the first Walmart in Rogers, Arkansas in 1962. His idea was simple: the lowest prices, the most efficient logistics, maximum sales volume. Today, Walmart is the world's largest private employer. 2.3 million employees. Annual revenue, over $600 billion. That's more than the GDP of most countries. The Walton family holds about 45% of the company's shares. Their combined net worth exceeds $200 billion. By that measure, they are the wealthiest family in the world, not one individual. A family. Sam Walton drove a 1979 pickup truck until he died and lived in a modest house. Money is a tool, not a lifestyle. The kids interpreted that lesson differently. The Saudi royal family isn't just a monarchy. It's a state as a family business. In 1902, Abdulaziz ibn Saud recaptured Riyadh with a force of 40 men. By 1932, he had united the Arabian Peninsula into a single kingdom. Then they found oil, a lot of oil. Aramco, Saudi Aramco, is the most profitable company in the history of humanity. In 2022, its net profit was $161 billion. Apple looks on nervously. The family numbers more than 15,000 members. All princes receive state payments. This is literally a state distributing oil revenue among one family. Today, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, is trying to diversify the economy through Vision 2030. Because oil isn't forever. And those who've survived this long understand that. What do all these families have in common? First, they thought in generations, not years. Rockefeller wasn't building a company. He was building a legacy. The Medicis invested in culture that would pay dividends 500 years later. Second, they diversified. From furs into real estate, Astor. From gunpowder into chemicals, DuPont. From oil into finance, Rockefellers. Third, they understood that money without influence is just numbers. Real power is when you're invisible, but every decision passes through you. You may not carry their names, but you live in the world they built. Total word count. 600 words. Josh. Speaking pace. 160 WPM. Shush. Got 10 minutes.